Now, it has taken me a few too many years to do this, but finally I am talking about A Nightmare on Elm Street on my channel, and honestly, it is probably the best example of milking a franchise until there's nothing left from the original. But the series could have been extremely different if some other scripts got made, and since it is my favourite franchise of all time, and I know there's a lot of good franchises out there, but for me, Freddy will always be number one. Throughout this video, we will be looking at every single unmade Nightmare on Elm Street film I could find any trace of. However, I won't be including any Freddy vs Jason concepts, as I already did a video on that with my Friday the 13th stuff, so be sure to check that out if you are interested. But with that out of the way, let's go take a look at some of the very odd, very fun, but most importantly, very unmade films in the Nightmare on Elm Street series. Shortly after the first film dropped and became a massive success for New Line, a bunch of ideas were created for a sequel, the first idea of which was a Nightmare on Elm Street sequel from screenwriter Leslie Boehm, which came up with a concept for a second film the franchise focused on a young family moving to the Elm Street house, where Freddy tries to possess the fetus inside of a pregnant mother, blending Freddy's control over when they're in a dream state of not. The film would have been a big homage to Rosemary's Baby, but sadly it was never made. However, a lot of stuff was being used from it. For the example, in Nightmare on Elm Street 2, which was released, it does focus around a possession subplot, and Nightmare on Elm Street 5 does look into the idea of a fetus and or baby, depending on which way you look at it, basically being possessed by Freddy and dragging people into the Dreamworld. However, it wasn't made, apparently due to New Line executive Sarah Risher being pregnant at the time and not feeling comfortable with the idea. However, like I said, Boehm's script was partially used, and Boehm did end up writing Dreamchild, the fifth film, so he didn't want to give up on the concept completely. Still, the fact that a Dreamchild-styled sequel was considered this early makes the mixed quality of that film even more questionable since they had a long time to think about it. I like Dreamchild, I don't love Dreamchild, but I do get why some people don't like it at all. Time for a trilogy of unmade films. After the second one was a still good success, even though it wasn't as good as the first one, by 1986, New Line had two financially successful Nightmare films and needed a third one as fast as possible. 4 concepts were eventually scrapped for a third installment, but we're only going to be talking about 3 in this bit, with the first concept by Wes Craven himself. Now, the idea was to have Freddy invade the real world using the production of A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, focusing around the actors of the film being haunted by and blah blah blah, so yep, this concept was also later reused as New Nightmare, but it does sound like there were some big differences. For example, they would have had a bigger cast, it would have been much more horror focused, and it would have also brought in a lot of the comedy, which Nightmare 3 ended up becoming more famous for, instead of the much darker tone that New Nightmare went with. The next concept was by actor John Saxon himself, who played Donald Thompson in the original film, the third film, and played himself in New Nightmare, and the film would have been a prequel focused around Freddy being set up for murdering the Elm Street children. Instead, the culprits would have been the Manson family instead of Freddy Kruegar, which is why Freddy was let off by the courts instead of it being a technicality, leading to his death at the hands of the Elm Street parents and his subsequent revenge. This film sadly never got made, however, as New Line were uninterested in a prequel film, but as I'm going to mention a few times in this video, a prequel was sort of made with 2 different episodes of Freddy's Nightmares, which was a TV show released around the 80s and 90s. The third cancelled concept was by Freddy Krueger actor himself, Robert Englund. In Freddy's Funhouse, the sister of original victim Tina begins having her own nightmares about Freddy and what he did to Tina, leading to her investigating what happened during the first 2 films and uncovering Freddy's past. Sadly, this version was obviously not made either, or else it won't be on this video, although apparently elements were used for the TV show. Instead, New Line decided to go with Wes Craven's original Dream Warriors script, and that one ended up becoming one of the best ones in the series, just hands down. Speaking of the third film script, it was rather different to the final version of the film. Now, originally the film's tone was going to be in line with the first 2 films being a dark film instead of a more dark comedy, which we got in the final version. Nancy was not a health professional at all and had a proper relationship with Neil. Kincaid and Joey ended up dead by the end of the film, with deaths overall being much gorier than what we got, and Freddy's mother is not in the script at all, with Nancy even surviving the film. She even kills Freddy the way she was killed in the final film, stabbing him in the stomach with his own claws. New Line changed some elements with director Chuck Russell, with Russell and former Walking Dead showrunner Frank Darabont changing elements of the script for the final draft, focusing on a more comedic style to move the franchise in a new direction, to bring in both new fans and bring back old ones who had gotten tired of the idea. Now, personally, like I said, love Nightmare 3, it is my second favourite in the franchise after the original, but hearing a darker version is an awesome concept. I just really wish they released two cuts of the film, one darker Wes Craven director's cut, and the final version, which ended up being made. For Nightmare on Elm Street 4, it's a little bit tricky. So before production began on Nightmare on Elm Street 4, the producers at New Line Cinema approached Wes Craven himself asking for a new film pitch. Wes's concept involved time travel through dreams. Yes, Freddy travelling through time. How much do I want this? It's about 1000%. I need this in my life. Sadly though, New Line decided to go with the concept which became Dream Master, as they wanted to continue the new lighter comedy horror direction for the franchise, with Freddy very quickly, because of the fourth film, becoming a pop culture icon. It's a shame that this one didn't happen, but I do understand from New Line's side why they didn't want to change this. And Nightmare 4 did become the highest grossing slasher movie of the 1980s, so yeah, that's fair. Now, this concept is not actually called the Dreamworld, but after reading the script myself, I thought it worked quite well, so yep, Nightmare on Elm Street 6 for Dreamworld. The original idea for a sixth installment followed behind Dreamchild as a direct sequel, focusing on Jacob, who is now age 15, and Alice from Dream Master and Dreamchild is killed very early on in the film, directly following on from the fifth one 15 years later, leading to Jacob going into the dream world to battle Freddy. The script had some very large Beetlejuice vibes, if I'm being honest, especially for the dream world, and it would have served as a conclusion to the storyline started in Dream Warriors. Now, sadly, as always, the film was scrapped for unknown reasons, meaning that it just didn't happen. So Alice and Jacob's story, despite being massively led up with the fourth and fifth films, was never concluded, meaning that we had to get a weird retcon at the start of the sixth movie, and yeah, that's when things in this franchise became a massive mess in my opinion. Although the weirdest part about this is the other idea for a sixth movie. Following on from the last cancelled script, another idea for the sixth film was created by future Lord of the Rings creator Peter Jackson in The Dream Lover. Yes, I'm not joking, The Dream Lover. So, a group of teenagers purposely go to sleep to torment Freddy in the dream world, now that he is rendered mostly powerless after Dreamchild really damaging him by forcing him back into his mum. If you haven't watched the movies, I ain't explaining that. However, due to people believing in him despite not being scared of him, he's able to gain power once again and begins killing off the teens. Sadly, this film was never made due to Jackson being mostly unknown at the time. However, just 1 year later, he did make Dead Alive and began his real career to become the Hollywood legend he is today. Now, I don't know why it was called The Dream Lover. There's a lot of rumours and speculation that one of the teens would fall in love with Freddy and he would fall in love with them, but no actual evidence of that actually being in the script, as it's not fully leaked online, and Jackson's never directly said that, so take it with a grain of salt, but yeah, Freddy shagging one of his would-be victims is a disturbing concept, and hey, I thought the scene in Freddy vs. Jason where he was shagging a dead camper was weird. Oh boy, we were saved from other things. Now, sometime during the 90s, most likely 1994, judging by the time it was cancelled, according to Robert Englund, there was a proper prequel to A Nightmare on Elm Street being planned, showing Freddy's first few murders whilst he was still alive, before the film turned into a courtroom-style drama, a bit similar to that Jason concept that I mentioned before, and also very similar to Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, as well as tons and tons of other concepts that you've seen throughout the year. In fact, Henry's director was even asked to direct the film. However, he did decline as he wanted to expand his filmmaking style and go away from the kind of courtroom horror which he had previously established with Henry. When asked about the film, Englund stated that not having a Nightmare on Elm Street prequel is his biggest regret. Now the actual production time of this film is completely unknown, but we do know why it was cancelled in 1994, due to New Line Cinema being bought out by Turner Broadcasting. They were not interested at all in the franchise by this point, which sucks because seeing a full film-length Nightmare prequel would have been awesome. No offense to Tobe Hooper, who directed the TV episode. It's very good. if you ever want to watch it, you can find tons of stuff on YouTube for the first episode, then watch the 7th episode because it's a direct sequel to that episode, so it's basically a movie anyway. But an actual proper prequel film, we're never going to get from the looks of it, which is a massive shame. Now, following on from Freddy vs. Jason, they had many ideas to reboot A Nightmare on Elm Street and the Friday the 13th franchise. Once again, go check out my video on it. And one of the weirdest ones that was being considered would have apparently focused on a group of kids battling a new Freddy in a similar style to films such as The Goonies and such as It. The film would have gone back to a darker tone, but apart from that, very little else is known about the film, including if Robert Englund was involved or not. Doubtful, since he did want Freddy vs. Jason to be his final appearance, but we can dream, literally, with this franchise. All we can do is dream. Now, speaking of the remake, quite soon after its release, the film was critically panned with very fair reason. I'm sorry, the movie is terrible. I don't know why people stan it. It's awful. However, the film was sadly a success at the box office, leading to a sequel being very early in development. Not much is known except that Jackie L. Haley, the only good part of a remake, was going to return as Freddy, and the film once again was going to be made by Warner Brothers, and the film was planned to be in 3D, releasing around about 2011/2012. The film evidently never came to be made, thank God, apparently due to the bad reception of the previous film, leading to a new reboot in the franchise currently being in the works. You know, after New Line stops making the Conjuring franchise and milking everything to do with it for all it's worth. Seriously, there's 8 of those movies now, there should be about 3. That's all I'm saying. And that is it. I know this video is a bit shorter than the rest, but there really aren't that many Nightmare films if you don't include Freddy vs. Jason, which does it does suck. I really like Nightmare movies. I'd like it if there was more. Honestly, I know that a lot of people have franchise fatigue with a lot of 80s slasher films, but for me, they could release a Nightmare on Elm Street movie every year, as long as Robert Englund's involved. I won't care too much. There's only 2 movies I really do dislike in the franchise, which is the remake, which I honestly pretend does not exist. To me, Nightmare on Elm Street ended in 2003 with Freddy vs. Jason, and I'm not a fan at all of the 6th movie. I have issues with the 2nd one, mostly because I don't think it fits well into the franchise with the possession subplot, but I can take it for what it is. It's a very quick sequel, and it wanted to try something new, which I can respect. The rest, even the bad ones, a lot of people cite 5 as one of the worst ones, I really enjoy it. It's just cheesy, shitty 80s fun, and what is wrong with that? Nothing at all. So, yeah, if you do enjoy this video, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. So, next month is the anniversary of my reboot to this channel. It was actually a couple of days ago, but I don't really count that. So I'm going to be doing, next month, 4 big videos, which will be compilations of all my different series I made. And there'll be a very, very, very big one, mostly because of my, hour and 10 minute long Godzilla video, which will be all the unmade videos. Then there'll be another one on the Lost series, which I ended up cancelling because I got tired of it. Another one on the Forgotten series, which also got cancelled because I got tired of it. And finally, one more for the rankings, which honestly, I only stopped because people stopped watching it. So, yeah, be sure to look out for that next month, and I hope you are all staying safe. Avoid the dreaded word, which I won't say because I notice every time I mention it, YouTube is just not advertising my videos. So, yeah, avoid the naughty word, and I hope you all stay safe, and I'll see you next month. Goodbye.